Live from Orlando, Florida, you're listening to the Orlando Magic HQ podcast, the voice of Magic fans. Join us every week for a unique fan perspective on all of the latest Magic news and updates. The show starts now.
What's up, Magic fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Orlando Magic HQ podcast, part of the Belly Up Sports Podcast Network. Today is Friday, May 19th. We're your hosts, Al, myself, Anthony. And in today's episode, we're finally going to talk about our reaction to the NBA lottery, man. We decided not to record immediately after because we wanted the news to kind of settle in, right? We wanted to make sure that we are open-minded. Because really, Al, you and I, we've talked about this where we were going into this lottery with zero expectations, where we're gonna accept with however the ping pongs end up dropping, and we're gonna talk a little bit about that in just a moment, and kind of talk about what we feel the Magic should do with the 6th and the 11th pick. Who are some of the prospects that we like? Our initial reactions, and then the Ringer just came out with their mock draft of who they think the Magic will end up selecting. So we're going to bring that up, and we're going to touch base on that and kind of see what that looks like. But before we get into that, I definitely want to touch base real quick on the experience that we've had at the lottery, the 6-man show Orlando Magic collaboration NBA draft lottery party. And man, it was a good time, man. It was the first time that we actually were able to get the whole entire HQ squad together in one place. It was a lot of fun. We had Bryce coming down all the way from Charlotte. We got our man Luke coming down from Boston. Then we had our local guys together, and it was a lot of fun, man. But how did you like the environment of the lottery party? For those that weren't there, how would you describe it?
I mean, first of all, major props to the 6-man show. They did it again, man. Last year, they knocked it out of the park. We got the first pick last year, so that kind of made it even better. But they topped it this year. I know the expectation was about 600 people to show up on Wall Street here in downtown Orlando. And, man, I don't know the final count. I think Jonathan told us at the end it was close to 400 maybe or so, which, I mean, that's an amazing, amazing turnout for a lottery where we knew we were not going to have the top pick. We knew that it was going to be a big shock if that happened. And even then, there was a major turnout. For those that couldn't make it, all I can say is great vibes, man. All the Magic fans that we interact with on Twitter, that know us, came and approached us. We got to hang out with, like you mentioned, with the whole HQ squad. That's been a long time coming. We finally made it happen. It was a great time. I feel like those 2-3 hours we were there just flew by. It's like we blinked a couple times. The lottery happened. And then after that, it was time to go home. But it was a great, great time.
Yeah, it was a really, really good time. Had a lot of fun. I'm actually kind of glad we didn't get the number one pick in the aspect of there was no way I would have been able to make it to work the following day. Absolutely no way. So from a responsible standpoint, we got that we didn't get the number one pick. Us getting the 6th and 11th, allowed for us to decide, all right, it's time to go home. It's a good. We don't need to stay out too late. We're a bunch of old guys that got careers and stuff. So that's probably a bad move. But a lot of fun, man. You can kind of get the sense that the community is growing. It was unfortunate news this year that Harry Buffalo was closing down, but the fact that they were able to lock down, a whole entire Wall Street was awesome. I feel like I haven't been to Wall Street since like my mid-20s. So it was definitely a blast from the past for me. It was very nostalgic. So the fact that I was able to be out there with a whole bunch of other diehard Orlando Magic fans, it was sick, man. I know that the 6-man show, they came out with a bunch of pictures that they dropped down from that event, and man, just kind of reflecting back on it, it was a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun. It was cool. It was a great time. And there's gonna be another gathering, man. We got the NBA draft coming just next month, a few weeks away. So that's going to be something to definitely look out for as well. Now, let's talk about how this kind of laid out. All right. No surprise, San Antonio, they won the number one pick in the draft. I'll be honest with you, man. It kind of seems a little too good to be true for San Antonio. You're talking about a team that kind of already has a pipeline for the fan base in France, where everything they've grown with Tony Parker. It seems like a storybook ending for San Antonio to end up getting drafting Wemby. But one thing that I will say is when it came down to either the Charlotte Hornets or San Antonio winning the number 1 pick, dude, when I tell you that I jumped out of my seat, like I didn't jump out of my seat because I was standing, but when I tell you that I almost jumped out of my socks knowing that we're going to keep Wemby far away from the Eastern Conference as possible, all the way down in Texas, I was really excited for that, just because if he turns out to be half of what they think he's going to be, I'm not trying to deal with that problem for the next foreseeable future. I like our chances of where we're at, not dealing with the problem like Wemby. But what were your thoughts on San Antonio winning it?
I mean, like you said, man, it was so predictable. I think you asked me, I think people asked me before the lottery started, and I kept saying, I think we stayed at 6, we stayed at 11, San Antonio wins it. And funny enough, that's kind of how it all played out. But to your point, Wemby going west was just my ultimate goal. I'm like, I don't want to deal with this kid, in our division out of all things. Imagine Charlotte now becoming like this major thing because they got Wemby, all the ESPN games. And here we are trying to get attention. And now Paolo would really be, the back burner for ESPN and all these media outlets. So in my mind, it's the best possible outcome just because I kind of predicted it. I kind of knew it was going to happen. It was kind of boring in a way just because we kind of all knew San Antonio was going to get him. And that's the way it played out. So I don't know. The wild thing was, to your point, had we won the lottery, I don't know what I would have done with myself. I wouldn't have slept. I would have just kept partying the whole night. So thankfully that didn't happen. But the best possible outcome outside of that would have been him going to San Antonio, and that's what happened. But I got to ask you real quick, though. What are your thoughts on all this wild stuff? We don't want to spend too much time on Wemby. We're not getting him, but all these wild expectations that are being thrown out there. Basically, the craziest one I saw, I retweeted yesterday, if he turns out to be KD, Anthony Davis, I forgot what the other one was, that would be like a situation where he didn't live up to expectations, according to I forgot who said it on national media. But what are your thoughts on those expectations for this kid coming into the NBA?
I'll be honest with you. I get the hype. I've seen the videos. I see the clips. I get it. I'm not going to sit here and say that I sat down and watched a whole entire game of Wemby. I'll be honest with you. I haven't. But what they're expecting from him, I wish I can see it the same way that other people say it. And I don't mean that by, talking trash about the kid or his game. I really truthfully haven't seen enough to really say yes or say no. Here's my thing, right? We see all these great clips. But I also see like the other things. Like I saw a video literally yesterday, or it might have been today, of him getting backed down by, Kenneth Lofton.
Years ago.
And granted, a couple years ago, I get it, but I'm talking about he's getting body, and we know that Lofton's a pretty heavy set dude, but he's not the only one. We've seen big guys from the league that he was playing in kind of back him down. And granted, it's a game of basketball. You're gonna have those moments. LeBron gets scored on, pretty often. It's just one of those things, right? But the way that they make him seem, I think the exact quote was somewhere along the lines of, if he becomes anything like Anthony Davis or Hakeem Olajuwon, it would be a disappointment. They're expecting for him to be stratosphere above the rest. And I find it hard to believe. I find it hard to believe because all we heard last year was about, Chet Holmgren and his frame. Can it hold up? He's likely to get injured? And I just don't understand why that level of conversation doesn't come up with Wemby. People have stated, well, his shoulders are more broad, his body is a little more structured, whatever it is. Like you look at Chet Holmgren, you see some type of unorthodox of some sort there, right? But at the same time, man, I think that frame is an issue, and he'll gain that. And we've seen the Kevin Durant's, we've seen what Giannis has been able to do and transform his body, so he'll eventually gain it. I just don't understand why that's just not a topic of discussion. So I don't know. You're saying rookie year with all the hype that has come with the name Wemby for the last few years. For them to say that if he becomes anything like Hakeem Olajuwon or AD, it would be a disappointment. Like those are elite players,
dude. They threw out KD out there. KD's what? The best scorer when he's healthy in the NBA. You're telling me that if Wemby becomes the best scorer in the NBA today, that will still not be enough. That will be a disappointment. Come on, man. Like that, the expectations are just wild. And to your point, the issue with me is his legs, man. He's so big. He's Euro steps with his height. Dude, imagine a sprained ankle on this kid. And I'm not hoping for that by any means. I want to see this kid succeed. But to your point, what was the last 7'2" guy that made it in the NBA and truly said like he was dominant? I mean, we saw Porzingis for a little while be like the unicorn, and we are like, oh, this kid's gonna blow up. And injuries happen. His knee injuries, his back injuries. He's not.
You can say the same thing about Yao Ming.
Yao Ming, same thing. I mean, I just haven't seen it. I mean, hopefully this will be the first, because the NBA needs that. They need a new face with LeBron getting older. We know that, but to put this much expectations on a kid, in that sense, I'm kind of glad we don't have him, because, dude, like it would be annoying to deal with, oh, he scored 8 points and 5 rebounds. He's the bust. Week 2 into his NBA career. Like, I don't want to be dealing with that. And my wild prediction has been all along, Paolo rookie season versus Wemby's rookie season, Paolo will be better. And let's see what happens then. Well, the talks will be at that point.
I mean, that's an interesting part, because when you take a look at San Antonio's roster, they got Keldon Johnson, they got a very, very young team to complement a very young player that you can give him the keys right away, and maybe he can go out there and perform the way that people are expecting him to perform, day one. Now, granted, our sentiment and things that we're saying would be completely different if he ended up, getting drafted by us, right? But just from that perspective, I don't know, man. It's one of those things where I'm going to be hyped when it gets to a point where it's the Orlando Magic versus San Antonio Spurs, and I want Paolo to go at Wemby. Like, to me, I'm gonna always compare Wemby and Paolo, just because throughout Paolo's whole entire rookie year, all you heard about was Wemby.
Yep.
Wemby had more national games as a non-NBA player than Paolo Banchero, the rookie of the year.
Yep.
To me, that's still
sad.
Insane. It's irresponsible by ESPN, but I expect nothing less. But kudos to the San Antonio Spurs. Maybe this extends Popovich for another few years to kind of see what he has. Just when everyone thought that this was going to be, the end of Pop, coaching, finally going to retire. Hey, here comes the NBA not allowing for that to happen. Now, great news for San Antonio. Not so great news for Detroit and Houston. You're looking at teams that deliberately try to lose as many games as possible, and the gods of basketball decided to award them with Detroit the 5th pick and Houston the 4th. We know that this is the reality of the lottery. Nothing is guaranteed. Just because you have the worst record in the NBA does not mean that you will end up getting the top pick. And I honestly, I don't feel bad for Detroit. You already got your number 1 pick. You got Cade Cunningham. All right. Be happy. It is what it is. He's injured, but he's still a solid player. You already got your 1 pick. And they've been able to draft, pretty well with Jaden Ivey, to where they're still adding good quality basketball players to their team. But I mean, what do you think? Do you feel bad for Detroit?
I don't, just because, to your point, they blatantly tanked last season. So did Houston. I think most teams that were losing so many games at the end there, they were blatantly tanking and just hoping for a shot at getting Wemby. But Detroit and Houston, man, you're going to feel bad, though, to some degree, just because they've been trying this tanking and losing on purpose thing for a few years now. And I get it. Detroit got lucky. They got Cade. But Houston keeps missing out, man. They keep trying to get a top pick year after year. They wanted Paolo badly last year, and that didn't work out for them. And now this year, unfortunately, they drop out of the top 3, which is predicted to be the top 3 most talented guys. They fall right outside of that. So it kind of stings for them. But it makes me, as a Magic fan, so much happier knowing we tried, we competed, we saw progress in our young guys. We're excited for what's coming. Whereas if you're Houston or Detroit, I'm sorry, but your team did not progress very much last year. If anything, Houston was a shit show last year. We all know that. And you got this to show for it now. Like, Detroit won, what was it, 18 games this year, whatever it was. and you got a fifth pick to show for it. And here are the Magic, who won more games than the year before, bright future, great talented roster, 2 first-round picks coming in, and yet we're a pick right below them. Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's where it's how it's how it happened, and it could have easily been a different way. I think Dan Savage had reported that the Magic were one ping pong ball away from winning that number 1 pick. I think another team also, I believe it might have been the Pistons or maybe
the
the
Wizards.
Blazers. The Wizards?
The Wizards?
I know it was one other team that also had the same similar situation where they had 3 ping pong balls that matched what was needed to win the number 1 pick out of the 4. But that's kind of how things go. Now, let's get into our reactions from where we ended up drafting. We were there in person. We were there with all the other Magic fans that were watching this live, at the Wall Street Plaza. And the Magic ended up but we ended up getting the 6th and the 11th pick. Now, I'll be honest with you. Nervous wreck everyone was. I think leading up to that point, you and I stated no expectations. We're going to let it fall where it may. But let's be honest, bro. When it got to the point where things were starting to count down, a part of us was really hoping that the luck of the Irish was on our side, right? That we were really hoping that things were really going to, get to a point where we at least got into the top 3. That's what we wanted. But we weren't just holding out on just the 6th pick or the top 3 pick. What we wanted to make sure that we did is we didn't allow for that Bulls pick not to convey. We didn't want them to fall in that top 4. So the number 1 thing that we were looking at was we can't drop lower than 11th. If the Bulls pick, if we didn't get the Magic or the Bulls pick at that 11th, then we knew that was going to fall into the top 4, right? So here we go. 14, 13, 12, and then it pops up. That 11th pick pops up, and everyone's kind of embracing, waiting for it because it's either good news or bad news. There's no in between. It's either yes or no, and we see that they lifted the Orlando Magic sign. Now, what's interesting is when we saw that, everyone knew in that place right away that the Bulls pick, it's ours, man. Thank you. Your debt has been paid. And unfortunately, from videos that we've seen online from the Bulls fan base, another Bulls live stream podcast, I don't know what's going on with that fan base, man, because they keep getting faked out numerous times. And they legit thought that their pick made it into the top 4 instead of landing to us, which is amazing because I'll take that little extra hit, because in the beginning, there was a lot of Bulls fans talking like they got a steal. We gave you a busted Wendell Carter Jr. We're going to give you a bunch of picks that you guys will never be able to get profit from, because now we're going to be this amazing basketball team. And that's not the way that it worked out. So the minute that we saw it was the Orlando Magic, I'm talking about that whole entire Wall Street Plaza went ballistic. Everyone was hyped because that was the best possible outcome with the Bulls pick. And we know for sure in that moment that we're going to be able to have 2 lottery picks. And it was amazing outcome. So when you saw the 11th pick, how were you feeling?
I mean, just like everyone else, man. There was no confusion on my part. I saw a Magic logo. I saw some little fine print underneath. It is weird. The way that they did it this year was a little weird. I can see why the confusion happened. I can see why people were faked out, because normally it would say they would use the logo from the Bulls. But you know what's funny? It had the little fine print underneath. It had like in bold letters. I think it was traded from the Bulls or something. I forgot what the exact wording is, but it said it. Like it wasn't just a plain logo. But bottom line is, of course, that was my initial thing. Like, if we don't get Wemby, if we don't get into the top 3, top 4, at the very least, give me 2 lottery picks. So getting to this level right here, getting the Bulls pick in my possession, was already kind of a win. Anything after that was going to be just an incredible night, no matter what happened. So up to this point, I'm excited. So keep going. What happened after that?
So the Magic were drafting at 11. Now, after the 11th pick, we saw 10 fall to Dallas. We saw Utah, 9. The Wizards, man, I feel so bad for Josh Robbins. Josh Robbins is an avid Washingtonian. I don't even know if they call themselves Washingtonian. I'm going to assume so. Covering the Washington Wizards now, former Orlando Magic beat writer. Was really hoping for some excitement for him just because, I still follow his work. Not the case. 8 for the Wizards, Indiana 7. And as these cards keep coming out for each one, you can tell the excitement, right? Everyone's going crazy for each one. And then we get to number 6. Number 6 is important because this is where the Magic were projected to fall to. And if the Magic aren't called, then obviously that means we rise. And as everyone's waiting, the anticipation, the embracing the impact, we see that the Orlando Magic the card was pulled for the Orlando Magic for 6. And it's very similar to, the Jalen Suggs draft, right? Where we ended up, the Raptors ended up drafting Scotty Barnes instead of Jalen Suggs. Jalen Suggs gets drafted by the Magic. Everyone goes ballistic. Now people are wanting Jonathan Kuminga. People are wanting your boy Moody.
Moody, yep.
Every has, book night. Everyone has that player that they want and expect for the Magic to draft. And they ended up saying Franz Wagner, and the whole arena goes quiet. That's exactly what it felt like when we saw the Orlando Magic card get pulled for the 6th spot. Everyone was a little disappointed. And that's why I think that it took us a little bit to kind of decompress. And when we actually talk about it, we share our feelings. At the end of the day, we're reminded, 6th and 11th pick is a big deal. So Detroit ended up falling from 4. They're projected 4 to 5. Houston ended up dropping from their projected 2 to 4. Then Portland going up 2 spots for that 3 spot. Charlotte moving up 2 spots for that 2nd spot. San Antonio also moving up 2 spots into the 1st spot. Now, the one that is really interesting to look at is Charlotte and Portland. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because you look at Charlotte and the projection right now is for the 2nd spot to be between Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson. There has been reports today stating that teams haven't been fully impressed by Brandon Miller. He hasn't been interviewing well. He's out of shape. And then you also have the whole, issue that he had with the woman getting killed and the gun. So the gun incident. So there's a lot of baggage that's coming along with Brandon Miller at the moment. He's still considered an elite talent. You have Waj coming out reporting that, teams are seeing a player or not taking the stuff that has happened in consideration with Brandon Miller, saying that he's been able to overcome certain things and aspects or whatever case may be. But at the same time, you're seeing that he's not doing great in interviews. These are little things that are so important that could mean the difference between getting drafted 2, 3, or even falling in the draft, especially when you have a player like Scoot Henderson. So now you ask yourself, would a player like Scoot Henderson mesh well with a player like LaMelo Ball? If Charlotte does decide, hey, we're still going to take best player available, and we believe that Brandon Miller is best player available, Damian Lillard and Scoot Henderson, I don't think Damian Lillard would be too happy with that outcome. There's already been reports stating that Portland will be willing to make moves to be able to bring championship caliber players to be able to support Damian Lillard. So it leads me to my question. Magic 6 and 11. Do you stay pat, or do you try to infiltrate that 2nd or 3rd pick and package your picks to consolidate and try to move up?
I would love for the Magic to jump up some way, somehow. The guy in my eyes, even though we're getting reports he's not interviewing well, it's out of shape, Brandon Miller, but I think if you can some way, somehow grab a kid like that can shoot it so well, exactly what we need. He fits in perfectly what we're doing. The thing is, I don't see Charlotte giving up that pick. I don't see how LaMelo and Scoot kind of fit in really well. I think that was my first reaction to them getting the second pick. But you never know with the Hornets if they want to give that a shot. LaMelo's more of a shooter, more of a playmaker. Scoot more of a scorer, athletic. It may work in today's NBA. We don't know. Portland seems like they want talent that they can add to Damian Lillard. So if you're the Magic, you give them 6 and 11, great. They can package those picks for a vet that may help. But wouldn't that be better if they send the third pick to that team instead? So I have some questions as to how we can get in there unless we package players in the process to make that happen. But then again, who can we trade to Portland, let's say, that will make them be interested in? Like, because a winning player, Gary Harris, like, we don't have vets that can really make an impact to make them better today. So I would love for that to be a case that we can jump up some way, somehow. Maybe Charlotte, maybe. But with Portland, I'm just not seeing it right now. We don't have enough vets, enough difference makers that can help Lillard in that quest for a championship, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't see us being able to provide enough. Damian Lillard wants to win and wants to win. Here's my thing about Portland and Damian. I'm going to try to say this without jumping off topic, but it feels to me that nobody wants to be the bad guy. Damian Lillard doesn't want to be the one that says, I want you to trade me. And Portland Trail Blazers do not want to be the ones that say, hey, we want to trade you. When we both know both sides want exactly that. There's no, it's just impossible for me to see, Detroit make any moves that will give Portland a better team that they've had, within Dame's career that he's had with the Portland Trail Blazers. You're not going to be able to find another player out there that's going to be equivalent to CJ McCollum or the time frame that he had with LaMarcus Aldridge. Like you just I don't see it. I don't see it happening. I think that that opportunity has sailed. If I'm Portland right now, what you can get for Dame would be insane. We take a look at what they were able to get for Donovan Mitchell. You would think that a player of Dame's caliber will be able to surpass that deal by miles. This is the last shot, man, because Dame isn't getting younger. It's not like he's a massive, size player either. He has to rely a lot on his shooting ability and his athleticism. So we'll see what ends up happening there. I don't see us moving up with Portland. Charlotte, I don't see it either. And I think that for those reasons, I don't think the Magic end up making a move. I really don't.
So the follow-up question that I would have is, so we can't move up. But then do you think the front office should explore at least taking some phone calls and say, hey, would you take 6 and 11 for X player? Meaning, let's not get younger because we already have a ton of young guys at this team. Should the front office embrace shopping those picks and say, hey, we got these 2 amazing picks, Peck, even the Denver 25 if you want it. And let's talk about adding a player that can make a difference in Orlando today. So that Paolo, Franz, Wendell, Markel can now have some help from a veteran standpoint, a shooter, a scorer. So all the weight is not on the young guys. Should that be a conversation? Or are you okay with saying, you know what? No, let's keep following this path that we're in. Let's keep building to the draft. It's still too early in the process to kind of blow it up in a way. Let's keep going. What's your take on that?
It's hard because when we say, let's package these players for, a vet, who are we talking about? Like who out there can you justify 6 and 11, knowing the draft that we have, where there's solid players in this draft that can really make a difference? Who is out there that you can justify 6, 11, and player compensation to match?
That's what I'm struggling with, to be honest. I can't think of a name that I would be like, I would do it for that guy. Just because people keep saying always Bradley Beal, the Florida connections, and I just don't see it. He hasn't proven that he can be a winner with a pretty decent team in Washington. Why would that change in Orlando? I don't know. Maybe he would, maybe not. I don't know. But the money he's making, what he has shown me, he's a scorer. but in my mind, empty scorer, not a guy that can make a difference in the court. That's one. Cat, I don't want Cat in Orlando. I don't think, same thing. He's an empty stats kind of guy. He looks good in numbers. I don't see him making a difference with our team. So that's my issue. People keep talking about maybe package 10, but I'm like, what do you get? The only crazy name out there would be a Dame situation where Portland embraces the rebuild and you trade Dame to Orlando. You give him 6, 11, a bunch of picks extra and whatever to get a guy like Dame. That may be interesting, but he wants to go to a competitor, a team that can win today. Does he think that Paolo, Franz, him, Wendell, and Markel, whatever it may be, is a winning team? I don't know. But that could be interesting. Outside of that, it's just Luka or Jaylen Brown. But again, would that be enough to get that type of guy in Orlando? So I'm struggling with that.
Detroit wouldn't do that. Dallas wouldn't do that. There's no way, just from a market standpoint, selling tickets, you don't let a player like Luka go. You just don't. You don't. He's MVP caliber. So I can't see that happening. We've talked about Anthony Edwards, but that's only if we won the number 1 pick. So that's out of the question now. You talk about Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal is so expensive, has had issues with injury before. That doesn't make sense. Shout out to Mr. Jersey Worthy who brought this to our attention, and I'm sure that you're gonna like this one. But he told us that he was listening to the Bill Simmons podcast, and Bill Simmons was talking about packaging the Magic 6 and 11 and a player like, I believe it was Gary Harris, to Houston for Jalen Green. And to me, like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. You look at, he's a player that has athleticism, can score, but we really don't know what he is just yet, right? It's still too early for that. 6 and 11, like, let's not sit here and act like we can't draft a high caliber player at 6 and 11. It's not like the best player in the draft every year is number 1 or number 2. That's not the way things work. We take a look at, Franz Wagner, and we can make the case that he is the best player in his draft. If not, if you really want to debate it, minimum top 3.
Yep.
And we got him later. So I don't know. I'm against trading 6 and 11 just because I like the players that are there. A part of me is kind of happy that we're at 6 and 11 just because 6 and 11 puts us right in the position to draft the players that I want to draft. And we talk about the needs for this team. Talk about the needs for rebounding, rim protection, shooting. We can address those needs now, here, like this month. And I think that when you take a look at really building a team around Franz and Paolo, this is one of the ways that you do that. Your last 2 drafts, you drafted Franz and Paolo and Suggs. You haven't been able to build around them. You drafted them to build around the players that you've already had or best player available, right? But now it's the opportunity where you can draft around. That's part of the reason why I don't think that we're going to make those moves. I don't think we're going to trade. We're going to keep them because this is now the Magic opportunity between the draft picks, free agency, and if they do decide to do any trades down the line, now is where you really start seeing, all right, Franz and Paolo, they're our core. Now let's see what we can do to bring guys around them to really help them, maximize their game.
I think so too. I think unless something crazy develops during the draft, days leading up to it, that the Magic simply cannot say no to it. I think there's a big chance the Magic end up just drafting 2 rookies and running with it and trading the second round pick for a 2037 second round pick. It's going to happen. But the point of the story is I think they do like what they're building. They do like the flexibility of the contracts of 2 young guys over an overpaid Bradley Beal, let's say, at this particular moment. But with that being said, so let's assume that we do move forward with the 2 picks. Give me your dream scenario today. We haven't researched the prospects that much. We're going to start doing that next week on the podcast. But as of today, number 6, who will you go with? Number 11 in your dream scenario.
So back and forth with number 6, because when we talk about fit, we talk about needs, we talk about best player available. And this is kind of where I started to kind of change my mind a little bit of where I would go 6. I'm not fully sold on it, but I kind of convinced myself that, maybe this is the only way. And our Magic HQ YouTuber, Brett James, he talked about this in his most recent episode that he just posted on YouTube. Make sure you check it out. You either keep or package. But he stated that he would select Grady Dick, the 6th pick. And I thought to myself, I'm like, man, the 6th pick, Grady Dick, is extremely early compared to the projections that they have him, right? They have him, a lot later, anywhere from like 10 to 15 or 10 to 14. We'll keep him in the lottery. But he could potentially still be there at 11 if we didn't pick him at 6. But here's my thing. If you bring Grady Dick in and you like him, he's a shooter, he addresses a need, he's athletic, he can help, and with our transitions, he can help in a lot of different ways. If you interview him, you like him, you think he's a fit, is it better to secure him at 6 than wait to see if he's available at 11? And this kind of reminds me of Tyler Hero, where originally he was projected to go late in the first round. I think he was projected to go about 24. I think Bleacher Report had him 24th, his projection. And he was a player that I really wanted the Magic to draft because he was a shooter. We suck at shooting, right? Simple math. Terrible shooting, get a shooter. And he was an elite shooter. And the Miami Heat ended up taking him 13th. And when that happened, I'm like, what? Why did the Miami Heat pick him so early? Why not draft back? He would have been available. And as you can obviously see, that's really panned out, and it's worked for them. That's why it's also important that at 6 and 11, I think you can kind of take those type of risks, right? For example, if you're the Charlotte Hornets, right? You're going back and forth between Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson. But if you don't get one of those players, you're going to get eaten up alive by the fan base. You kind of expect it to draft. Everyone's expecting, the national media, the fan base, everyone. We kind of know that those are the players that are going to go there. But at 6 and 11, you can take those type of risks and really get the guy that you fall in love with, that you can take a risk on, you can take a flyer on. And I don't know, man. I would consider taking Grady at 6, but part of me still feels like we can kind of hold off and he might be available at 11. So I say all that to say this. I like Taylor Hendricks. I like him a lot. I think he addresses a lot of our needs. Rim protector, can shoot. He's athletic. He's a little undersized, in terms of a big man, but he's someone that you can play at the 3, 4, and 5. He can play the small 5, and he's someone that can help from an athleticism standpoint to really work well with Paolo and Franz. I think that he's somebody that can really, really take us to a different level from that aspect. And if you can somehow pull him and then pull Grady at 11, I think that is an amazing outcome.
That's an amazing
outcome. It's a home run, 100%. 6 and 11 for you. What are you thinking?
So it's funny because I feel very similar to how you're feeling. And that is that I've been wanting, if you've been watching this podcast for the last 3-4 years, we've been doing this. Number one, thank you for that. But number two, I'm always a guy that likes wings. I like wings that either one thing or the other, either can shoot it well, or number two, are athletic and can dunk it really well. That's just my thing. I'm a sucker for those things. Well, guess what? Grady Dick is a mix of both of those things. They can shoot it. They can also dunk it pretty well. But most importantly, to your point, he fits a need today that we've had for years, and that is shooting the ball. I love what you said about the Heat and Hero. That's a really good example. He may be there at 11, but if he comes to Orlando, you like the personality, you like who he is, you like his background. He puts on a show shooting the ball during the workout that he does with us. I would be perfectly fine saying draft him at 6 if he really is that guy that you thought he was going to be. So I'm okay with Dick at 6, to be honest with you. I know people might disagree with me in the comments. Please disagree with us, because I know we're both saying that we'll be okay with it. But if he is that guy, take him. At 11, in that case, then I would take a big guy. Whoever the next best big guy available would be, go with that person at 11. If that means that Taylor Hendricks drops, draft him. If that means that is a guy like Jarris Walker from Houston, take him. Whoever that may be. Or you can go the whole just shooting and scoring route. Take Dick at 6, and then you take a shooter or another scorer at 11. And you can either keep that pick, trade it, whatever it may be. But to your point, if we can end up drafting a guy like Hendricks and Dick, or I'll take it one step further, one of the Thompson brothers, either one, and Grady Dick, or even a guy like Cam Whitmore and Grady Dick, like that would be a perfect scenario to me. Either one of those would work really well for the Magic, fits a need. It would be a home run to us. Any of those scenarios that I just described right now. But the main takeaway is, with number 6, get a guy that you like, get a guy that you think will play right away next season, that would help the team win. And if you ask me, that right now, as of this moment, it's either Hendricks or Dick, in my opinion. One of the two of them would fit in right away in this team.
I agree with you 100%. I think that what's going to come down to, and here's the thing to remember: these interviews that they do is so important. They're already meeting with some of the players now at the draft combine. Huge, because from my understanding, there's not really a limit of how many players that they can meet with at the combine. And afterwards, that's where it does become a limit. So they've already met with or plan on meeting with Brandon Miller, Asar Thompson, Eamon Thompson, Howard. And, this is where they're going to get a chance to get a feel for the type of individual that they are. Remember that this is really important for the Orlando Magic. They're a high character organization where that's what they look in as part of their prospect. And the interview weighs heavily for them. So I really do think that all of this is going to come down to how they perform, obviously in the combine, how they perform during their workouts, but the interview is going to be a big part of it. And, the Ringer has already came out, and they did this within a quickness. I'm talking about the minute that the lottery came out, I think within, less than an hour, Kevin O'Connor already had his mock draft, which I think is pretty dope, but also kind of, I wish he would have spent a little more time on it, but we're going to go through it real quick. So obviously, number 1, we already know San Antonio Spurs. They're going to draft Victor Wembanyama. That's kind of already set in stone. Coming in at number 2, he has Brandon Miller from Alabama going to the Charlotte Hornets. Now, again, the reports are that he's not interviewing well. He's out of shape. So who knows if the Hornets might go a different route. All right, so coming in at number 3, you got the Portland Trailblazers. It's no surprise. We know that 2 and 3 is going to land between Brandon and Scoot. It's just really depending on where exactly the preference is for these teams. They've already stated that the NBA draft will start at 2. We know that. That's obvious. But Scoot Henderson falls 2-3 to Portland. And this is what's interesting, because again, we spoke about this. Does Damian Lillard want to play with a player like Scoot? Scoot has already mentioned that he feels like he would be a great, addition with Damian Lillard. So he's expecting to go 3, hoping he goes to Portland unless they make a trade. And I think what's awesome about Scoot Henderson, even on the Ringer, they have him listed when they talk about his greatest attributes. They have him as a human highlight. They have him that he has a great feel for the game, his athleticism. But they also have it that he's got that dog in him, which I think is kind of dope. I think this time around when they come out with the mock draft, I think they kind of went a little outside of the typical range of their description on players. Coming in at number 4, you got the Thompson One of the Thompson twins. You got the Houston Rockets going for Amon Thompson, who is said to be the better Thompson twin between him and Asar. Apparently, they're saying that he has a better shot. I haven't done too much research on the Thompson twins, but he's a bigger elite. He's a bigger wing, 6'7", weighs 200 pounds. And with Houston, when you take a look at the team that they have now, they got a lot of young pieces, and it's kind of weird, man, because you see them adding another young piece to their team, and you would think on paper that they have one of the best young teams in the NBA, and that's not necessarily the case. Houston got a lot of question marks, man. There's been reports about James Harden wanting to go back to Houston. What the hell would that dynamic be?
Makes no sense.
Yeah, insane. Extremely young team. You add James Harden. Now they got the new head coach from Boston. I can't think of his name right now, but they got a whole lot going on in Houston that I don't know, man. It's a little messy over there. I'm not sure if you saw the video of when Victor Wembanyama was watching the lottery. Yeah, and saw that Houston, kind of already fell early, and he was excited that he wasn't going to Houston. He did one of those smiles and fist pumps. Houston's a mess, man, and I don't blame him. Paolo lucked out. He lucked out that he went to us and not Houston. All right, number 5. You got the Detroit Pistons drafting Cam Whitmore. This to me was a little surprising, just because in a lot of the national media big boards, they have Cam Whitmore falling a little bit. They have him like the 7 to 8, 9 range, and you got him going 5. So he's another player that, and what's cool about Cam Whitmore is his description on the Ringer is shades of a semi-truck with a Ferrari's accelerator. Normally we get like shades of this player and that player, or more athletic version of this other player. Nah, man, they decided to describe him as semi-truck with a Ferrari's accelerator. Positional versatility, athleticism. They also list him as him having the dog in him, which, again, interesting description. All right. Number 6, the Orlando Magic. The reveal. So the Ringer has the Orlando Magic selecting the second Thompson twin in Asar Thompson. One of the biggest, talks or debates when it comes to the Thompson twins is the fact that they didn't play in college. They didn't play in, the G League for the G League Ignite. They played in Overtime Elite, and some of the biggest, the drawbacks are the level of competition isn't the same. They really don't know, how they would size up against these other, elite type players. And that's kind of my concern as well, because I would love to have seen, what they're able to do with the same caliber of elite competition. We didn't get a chance to see that. So the workouts are going to be important. The interview is going to be important. It says here that the Orlando Magic, with Rookie of the Year Paolo Banchero and a host of other long, versatile players like Franz on the roster, the Magic should think about Thompson because of his ability to be switchable piece on defense. Markelle Fultz already displays a formula for success, and Thompson similarly has even greater upside thanks to his size, complementary playmaking, and defense. So they got the Magic selecting 6. I honestly wouldn't be mad at this. If the Magic did decide to go completely against our well wishes, which they normally have done the last 10 years, I can see this kind of happening. But how would you feel with the Magic drafting Asar?
I mean, all along we kept hearing this draft as, Wemby, of course, but after that, it was always Scoot and the Thompson brothers. That was what this draft was known for. So the fact that we could get this kid at number 6, if again the workouts go his way, the Magic like him, I would wholeheartedly just trust the front office and say, hey, they saw him, they interviewed him, they like what they saw, they picked him. They must have seen something that we are going to enjoy as a fan base. So I'll be perfectly fine with this, to be honest with you, just because he's not the greatest shooter when he's shooting, as we talked about earlier. But again, if they saw enough in him to draft him at 6, I'll be okay with that.
Yep, this is another player with athleticism. He's real bouncy. He's a two-way player. The Ringer has him listed as a player with shades of Sean Livingston with elite athleticism. So there's that. All right,
Yeah.
number 7. Number 7, you got Indiana selecting Taylor Hendricks. This is a player that we wanted to see the Orlando Magic draft again because he's able to provide the shooting that we need, the rim protection that we need, the athleticism that we need. There's a lot of things that this guy has that we need, and this is a player that I really, really want us to take a really good look at. The fact that he's already played in Orlando for some time with UCF is a big deal as well. So I like that connection. Number 8, you got Anthony Black from Arkansas. Bigger guard, 6'6", wingspan about 6'8". I really don't know a whole lot about Anthony Black. This is a name that I keep seeing. Big player. You got his the Ringers shades of Lonzo Ball is their description. So there's that.
Interesting.
Number 9. Kaysen Wallace for number 9. You got a 6'2" combo guard who is listed as having shades of Drew Holiday and DeAnthony Melton. He's a hustle type player that can catch and shoot, so he has a good jump shot as well. All right, number 10. Jarris Walker. This is your guy. Talk to me about Jarris Walker.
Listen, man, rebounder, plays like a big man. Again, if for some reason Taylor Hendricks is not there for us, this would be a perfect pickup for me at 11, though, not at 6. So again, say you go Dick, you go with a shooter at 6, and you say, hey, we need a rebounder, a guy that can help us down low a little bit. This would be my pick, if you ask me. I think he's probably the second best big man in this draft. Thinking about the fact that really Hendricks is there, Wemby, and Walker. So actually number 3, it will be my prediction for him as the best big man in this draft. So if you can get him at 11, that'll be a great get for the Magic.
Yeah, that's only if Grady Dick was taken. And as we move forward to the next one, drafting at number 11, the Orlando Magic selects Grady Dick, according to Kevin O'Connor of The Ringer, which, again, makes sense, man. We need shooting. They and it's crazy because in this article, they say with his shooting ability, Dick provides something the Magic don't have. The team is ranked 27th in three-point shooting attempts, 24th in three-point percentage this season. And after drafting a player like Asar Thompson that we know has opportunity around shooting, it makes sense, man. This is kind of the reason why I'm hoping that the combo that we go with is Grady Dick and Taylor Hendricks, because they both provide that level of shooting that we desperately need. This has to be something that ends up changing. And I think that from the small glimpse that we've seen towards the end of the season with Markelle Fultz, we've seen some improvement from, Franz Wagner with his shooting ability. And I think that, Paolo Banchero during the offseason, these are things that I know for sure that they're going to have that as a focus. If they can come back into the season with an improved shooting from behind the three-point line, and on top of that, you're adding 2 high-level elite shooters from the three-point line, it's going to change the narrative of the weakness of what people see within, the Orlando Magic. But, man, 6 and 11, that's where we're at, man. There's a lot of great opportunity there. The most important thing that we need to remember is the fact that we know that this team is going to improve. You got a sophomore Paolo Banchero. You have a more polished Markelle Fultz, a more polished Franz Wagner, a hungry Wendell Carter Jr. You got so many different things to be excited about, and the fact that you're adding 2 additional young pieces to that, or the possibility of adding 2 young pieces to that, depending on what the Magic end up doing. It's really, really exciting to watch. The real question is, do you want to add 2 more young players to the team, or do you look to see if you're able to improve the roster in some other capacity? Jeff Weltman was interviewed after the lottery, and the consensus that we kind of felt from what he said, because he talks a lot but really doesn't say a lot. But it felt like, he's excited to go through the process. He's excited to bring all these players in. He talked about how it's even more work because now they have 2 players that they really, really have to lock down on and see who it is that they like in those positions. But it sounded like more than likely he's going to end up picking, keeping the 2 picks. So a lot of things to really look into, a lot of options. And it's only a matter of time before we end up finding out. What are your final thoughts on 6-11? Anything that you want to say?
I mean, I was going to ask you if that was the final outcome come draft day. We got Asar Thompson, Grady Dick at 11. What would you rate that draft? A, B, C. How you want to rank it? 1-10. What would you rank that draft if that was the final outcome for us?
I'd rank it. I'd rank it a B, like a B plus. Yeah, B plus. Just because I do feel like we need to be able to get a big man in there. I would really like Taylor Hendricks. It's really the only combination that I can. If we draft Taylor Hendricks and Grady Dick, the two players I obviously really, really want, us not getting into the top 3 pick, I feel like that would be the closest thing that we could get to where I would have that same level of excitement. But even if we don't, there's still a lot of great players in this draft, and I'm not really worried. I have trust in the front office. You take a look at what they've been able to do with the last 2 picks. Like Paolo Banchero wasn't a guarantee. You had a lot of people, telling us that we should draft Jabari. Chet Holmgren was this player that was manufactured in a facility made specifically for the Orlando Magic and what the Orlando Magic front office looks for. And they went after Paolo Banchero. That was a plus draft. Franz Wagner, A+ draft. Jalen Suggs, even though he hasn't reached the pinnacle of what we believe he can be, still a solid defender that we believe that at one point in time in his career, we're going to see him all defensive. Like, the Magic have done a great job with drafting thus far. And I think that, we're going to continue that trend. So whoever it is that they draft, even if it's not the players that I want, I've gained that faith in them and knowing that, 1, they know more than we do, right? 2, that they do their due diligence and they know exactly, that's the picks that they will make will be the right fit for this team. I just really hope it's my players.
Final question. If you get Taylor Hendricks at 6, but you get a different shooter at 11, is that equally as good as drafting Hendricks and Dick? Or will you still be like, man, I wish I could have gotten those 2 guys?
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely going to be like, man, why? How do we miss out on Grady? Like, how? Why? I would be more disappointed if Grady was available and we went a different route than us taking the risk. Because I don't believe Taylor Hendricks will make it past 11, make it to 11. I don't think so. So if you want him, it has to be at 6. You have to take that risk with Grady. If another team drafts Grady and he's just not available, then it is what it is. There's nothing that we can do. But if we pass on him for someone else, Grady Dick would be a player that I would follow and kind of say, damn, that could have been us.
He'll be your Jalen Green, huh?
I don't know. Your obsession with Jalen Green it's bad.
He can score, bro. He can score. That's all I want. Imagine Jalen Green in this team right now with Paolo and Franz and the rest of the gang. Just scoring, man.
He can score, and he also paints his nails. And on that note, it's a wrap, man. We'll see what ends up happening. NBA draft is on June 22nd. Starter free agency is on June 30th. And as things now kind of slow down with the lottery, we only got a couple weeks of a break as things will then start to pick up. So a lot of the questions that we have, we'll finally get the answers to. On that note, appreciate you guys for listening. It's a wrap. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
For all the latest Magic news and updates, visit OrlandoMagicHQ.com and follow us on Instagram at Orlando Magic HQ and on Twitter at OMagicHQ. Also, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your favorite listening platform.